spoke to on Shabbos. Did something happen to that?
No.
I know, right? Talking to Colin, I was driving home from shul, and she's like, 100% back. This is on Sunday. And so he's 100% effective.
That's why the challah just to get a couple of them following the lead. We should take a couple of them. This is the minor
Oh, that's so funny.
Just in case there's a couple of them following the cream on the back.
They were told that they
Is the really real? No, that's just right. That's just right. Who's girl?
everybody got me, but all the kids.
So, the little what's up? It's not, huh?
So you were saying that Sunday.
And then, he's 100% all the time. I'm like, listen, he's like, I don't know all that stuff. Not reading and stuff. His kid needs to do another person. Like this, and I said to Michal, Michal's like, listen, we're going to do that kind of day or months. I'm just letting you know,
I've seen people call me all the time on this guy. I read the map and then I'm like, okay, this can be 5 minutes, could be 60 hours. I'm no longer real.
So I mean, Rita was there the whole day, I think, with the leads, and then they left. And then when they left, I think that's when
Sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
Like the person.
Oh, I hear that all the time. They wait for privacy.
I know stories where people lingered and held out. Yeah. Finally, the kids said, "My mother was writing," and I said, all you kids were here today. We all sang with you. I did. We're all at the place. We're hearing each other. Help. Take care. And then you let them go, and then they help. My fellow's mother, she held on for 7 months like vegetable. And finally, the brothers walked in and said, it's time. And she went.
Yeah, so that's good. So, I mean, look, it's God.
problems. Number one, you gotta be there 4 hours before the flight. Right. The flight in Chicago is way earlier.
Oh, is it earlier?
Yeah, and then the flight, everything was already done. The consulate is in New York. It's just
The
easier.
El Al's probably
The El Al is easier. My guys are automated. I had one time my driver got stuck in traffic. So we diverted my driver straight to the airport. He went straight to the airport from New York, from IT, and he kept the gate open until the driver showed up. He has that communication. He has to be there at 8. He gets there by 9. He calls them. But they do this. They do 5 times a day.
exactly. Well, anybody's going there, I'm sure very quickly.
I use this guy. Boom, 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 boom. And my thing is just lined up everything. Huh? Yeah, but it's not only that. The other companies I used to use, when I call them, every time I call them, there you go. Every time I call them, I have to take care of half the things that they are charged for. And I'm like, it's not. Yeah, I see. I put my rifle shot. The family got the family flew to Chicago. Oh,
Ashrei ha'yish shaloi halach b'atzas Yishoim u'v'derech hatoim le'yomad v'moshav leitzim le'yoshav ki yimseres adonai cheftzeh v'seros yegei yemam v'leila v'hoya keitz shosel al palgei moyim asher pirya yitim b'itoi v'aleu lo yibo v'chol asher yasi yatzliach le'chein r'ashaim kim kamitz shetitfen ruach al kein lo yakumu r'ashaim b'mishpat v'chatoim b'adas tzadikim Ki yedea adonai derech tzadikim v'derech Hashem teved. Today is an unknown day in the calendar. It's somewhat of a mysterious day. Shulchan Aruch tells us of certain days that it's appropriate for some to fast, such as Zayin Adar, or the day that Aaron HaKohen was nifter. And then Shulchan Aruch tells us that on the 8th day of Teves, there are those that fast because that's when Talmei HaMelech translated the Torah into Greek, or wanted it translated into Greek. 10th day we know is tomorrow, is Asara B'Teves. And the 9th day of Teves, Shulchan Aruch says a very unusual remark. Tisha B'Av lo noida al ma'ira. It's unknown why it is a day to fast, but there's something about it. Louis was somewhat of an enigma. He was not a person that you could understand just at first glance. There was a lot of depth, there was a lot of stuff going on in his mind. This week's parsha tells us so much about the end of Yaakov Avinu's life. Hine avicha chola, Yosef is first called to come to his father Yaakov because Yaakov Avinu is sick. And then, Eine Yisrael kavdu meizayke, and he can't see anymore. And he gives a bracha to Ephraim and Menashe. And then he's on his deathbed and he calls the Shvatim. And then finally, the Kvura of Yaakov Avinu. Evel kaved zeh, how everybody said that there's this great Avelus. and he's buried. Yet what is the name of the parsha? Vayechi. He lived. This is Parshas Vayechi. This is Parsha of Zikna, how he was sick, how he was dying, and how he died and buried. Perhaps the answer is based on what Rashi tells us on the pasuk of Vayesef, Raglov, Vayigva, Vayosef el Amov. And Rashi tells us the famous Gemara in Tainus. Misaloi Namrabai. It says that he lied down and everything. Vayosef, he was gathered, but it doesn't describe that he actually died. Yaakov Avinu loy meis. Yaakov Avinu never died. And Yaakov Avinu instilled this in us, Bnei Yisrael. Netzach Yisrael lo yishaker. That Klal Yisrael lives on. Yidden are eternal. Klal Yisrael is eternal. And that it does not have the regular life and death span. Chaim Aloza ben Yitzchak Isaac had a tremendous appreciation for those that people might have signed off as dead, and those worlds that everybody forgot about. He was very intrigued and devoted a tremendous amount of time to genealogy, to kvarim, to people that were nifter. To them, to him, they were still alive. To him, they were not something that just passed on. It was something very important. He would help others that would want to know about their families. Another part of his chiyus, another part of what gave him life, was his tzedakah. He was a tremendous Baal tzedakah. But he didn't just give tzedakah. It was a period of time that we used to have a chavrusa once a week. And one time we were learning about tzedakah. And I was describing how tzedakah is a very hard thing. We have to take from our money that we worked hard for and that we got and then give it away. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And he said, tzedakah? Tzedakah is like a drug. Tzedakah gives me a high. I love to be able to help others. Tzedakah is not a hard thing. Tzedakah is something so enjoyable. It's one of the greatest highs that I get, is when I'm able to give tzedakah. And he wasn't saying it to get any covet or anything. He just didn't understand what we were trying to say. How could you say it's hard? Tzedakah is something that gives such a chiyus, such life. The last number of years were the years where he was not well. He got very sick 5-6 years ago. Then, Baruch Hashem, he had a number of years well till earlier this year. But even in those years, you saw chiyus. First of all, you saw what his relationship was with his wife. The dedication that his wife had to him. The mesiras nefesh, literally. That she was dedicated to preserving his life. There's no question that she added years onto his life. Remember, 5 years ago, Euclid Hospital, they wanted to give up. And she said, no way, we're getting him out of this. And she fought and fought and fought. And she nursed him back to health. And throughout all these years, she stood by his side unbelievably. And additionally, you see that Netzach Yisrael lo Yishaker, you see how it continues. Part of the Yaakov Avinu Loi Meis is that out of this parsha, Yaakov Avinu's family doesn't die. Yaakov Avinu doesn't die, but rather Yaakov Avinu's family develops into a Klal Yisrael. Next week in Parsha Shmos, we start reading about a Klal Yisrael. We see how it blossoms and how it develops. This Yid, Louis, Chaim Lozer ben Yitzchak Isaac, he was always proud of his name, Chaim Lozer, after the Minkach, the Minchas Elazar. You see Belia in her, his family, his children, the children that he raised, all the chasnas that have been going on, how the family is growing, Belia in Hara, and blossoming in a beautiful way. So while it is so sad that unfortunately Chaim Lozer was nifter, but he gives us the way he had an appreciation for those that passed on. We need to have an appreciation for it. We need to have an appreciation for what life is, and as it was demonstrated through his wife's perseverance all these years. And to recognize the nitzchias of Klal Yisrael, which Baruch Hashem is being expressed beautifully by his family. Rebbe Schonfeld.
This is very emotional for me. 60 years ago, in the year 1965, I, Abodel Chaim Tovim, came into the same shir in Telz Yeshiva by Rabbi Munk Zechron Levracha. We went together in Telz Mechinah for a number of years. And a number of things I remember very clearly from then and all the years later. First of all, he used his good sense of humor to cheer everybody up. Very often. But what was already brought out was that the suffering of Klal Yisrael meant a lot to him. We're holding by Asar B'Teves tomorrow. Asar B'Teves is a day when we connect with the suffering of Klal Yisrael. The source of all the Churbanos came from Asar B'Teves. It was the first tzad of Churban, B'zman Bayis Rishon. It took 3.5 years till Tisha B'Av came, but it's all tzad in Asar B'Teves. In Asar B'Teves, we're supposed to connect ourselves to the suffering of Klal Yisrael. When Idmor on Pesach, you connect yourself to the suffering of Klal Yisrael. The previous days of Klal Yisrael. And in Asar B'Teves, we connect ourselves to the suffering of Klal Yisrael throughout the Deiros, and we use that as a motivation to upgrade our Yiddishkeit, upgrade our Eretz Hashem, and that's the purpose of the Tainus. Louis, all his years, was talking about the suffering of Klal Yisrael. He went through, historically, the whole World War II. He once was telling me about the winter of 45, the winter of 43. It was a big winter, hard work, Czechoslovakian Jewry, Hungarian Jewry, what happened in this city, that city, Munkach, this place, that place. He knew the whole story. He was there. He went back there. And it meant a lot to him. And he used to talk about it and talk about what the Rishonim did and the Midas Hadin and the Peronius. Minhagim of Klal Yisrael, his Minhagim, his roots and his Minhagim also meant a lot to him. He was metaktik with his Minhagim. And because the suffering of Klal Yisrael meant a lot to him, he tried to ease the suffering of other people. As mentioned, he was a big Weltstocker. He understood what institutions mean for Klal Yisrael. And the nitzchis of Klal Yisrael, the ups and downs of Klal Yisrael, meant a lot to him. And in the parsha of Vaychi Shmois is a very historical parsha. We're finishing Sefer Bereishis and starting Sefer Shmois. Sefer Bereishis was from 0 to a house of Klal Yisrael in Mitzrayim that houses the Shekhinah. And Sefer Shmoyes that we're starting with Mincha Beis Hashem Bolin Teva Shabbos is the family becoming a nation, from a house that houses the Shekhinah to a nation that houses the Shekhinah. Louis was very aware and had a strong sense of feeling for what's going on in Klal Yisrael. He knew what was going on all over the world, what went on historically, and he had a big nachas seeing that the churban that he didn't experience, but he did experience, became a blossoming future for Klal Yisrael. Louis, the suffering of Klal Yisrael meant a lot to you. You've spent years of Iyun going to the history of Klal Yisrael, and you suffered along with the Doiris. Go to the Kisya Kovid and be Mo'ir Rachamim for Klal Yisrael, and the days of fast shall be Matach Alenu L'Sosan L'Simcha.
Baruch Schonfeld.
My father was not a man who sought attention and honor. He lived quietly, with seriousness and deep modesty. He was a model of a hasnei aleches im elikecha, and would be uncomfortable knowing how much is being said about him today. But Chazal teach us that a hesped is not for false honor in this world. It's so that we can learn from a life lived and bring merit to the neshama. My father's life was defined by responsibility. Responsibility to his family, responsibility to live honestly, responsibility to act with integrity and kindness to fulfill v'asisa hayasher b'atoiv. My father wanted to make sure that his family always had what they needed, and even had what they reasonably wanted. He took that archayas very seriously. It was not something he spoke about or dramatized, it was something he lived with every day. That sense of responsibility shaped every decision he made. But what mattered to him even more than success, recognition, or accomplishment was one thing, derech eretz, and being a mensch. He did not care if we were impressive. He cared that we were decent. He cared that we were honest. He cared that we treated people properly. Honesty was not negotiable for him. Even something small mattered. He was allergic to dishonesty, midvar shaker tircha, in business and in life. Because to him, emes was everything. Once trust was compromised, nothing else could stand. That clarity shaped how he lived, how he conducted business, and how he raised his family. My father lived with deep respect for Torah, Gedolei Yisrael, and Rabbanim. This respect was not performative. It was quiet, consistent, and sincere. He was careful with his speech and avoided lashon hara. He despised arrogance, show, or self-promotion. His values were lived inwardly, not displayed outwardly. He was deeply connected to Jewish identity and continuity. Being an Einikel b'nei Yisachar mattered greatly to him, not only as a source of pride, but as a responsibility. His roots guided him his entire life. This sense of responsibility expressed itself in his lifelong passion for Jewish genealogy and Jewish history. As the Torah says, he searched for family. He photographed gravestones. He documented names, he studied communities, and he helped others do the same. People from all over the world contacted him, and he always gave of his time and knowledge to help them recount to their roots. He didn't keep his knowledge to himself, he taught. He led tours in Eastern Europe, in Hungary, Romania, and elsewhere, so others could understand Jewish history, not as something distant or abstract, but as something living. And when he traveled with purpose. He would bring clothing, toys, and simple items with him to give to Jewish children in Ukraine, quietly, without attention, and without expecting anything in return. As mentioned, my father was a true Baal Tzedakah, but almost all of his giving was hidden. We do not know how much he gave or to whom, because he never wanted it known. He despised arrogance and boasting. The only time he agreed to have his name appear publicly was not for honor, but for continuity, so that one day someone searching, as he once searched, could find a connection. He was especially sensitive to the mitzvah of Achnasas Kala. When a Kala was in need, that touched him deeply, and he always gave. Helping someone begin a Jewish home with dignity mattered greatly to him. My father was a deeply emotional person, although he did not always express it, or perhaps we didn't understand it. But one thing was always clear. He cared about us and about others very deeply. He cared about our safety. He cared about responsibility. He cared about doing things properly. He believed that tefillah must be honest. I remember him teaching me to slow down Shemona Esrei, to say every word carefully and with kavanah, because shortcuts do not belong in Avodas Hashem. I remember hearing him cry during davening, especially on the Yom Noraim. Those tears stayed with me. They taught me what sincerity looks like. He also had warmth and humor. I remember Friday night Shabbos tables, and he would make my mother laugh and seeing that joy meant a great deal to me. And I wanted to say something that must be said. My father was able to endure the past years because of my mother. During his illness, she fought for him every single day. She stood by his side like a true Eishes Chayil, with devotion, strength, and unwavering loyalty. Through exhaustion, uncertainty, and pain. Even when circumstances forced physical distance, she was never absent from him. She carried him with Mesiras Nefesh, guarding his dignity and advocating for him at every moment. His ability to live these years with care and kavod was sustained by her devotion, and that is an essential part of his story. Abba, I have always tried to make you proud, and I will continue to try my best. I know that the way you showed care was not always through words, but by setting an example of responsibility, expectations, and seriousness. You believe that a person is measured by how they live, not by what they say about themselves. You taught me what it means to carry a charayas. You taught me that honesty matters even when no one is watching. You taught me that shortcuts have no place in Avodas Hashem or in life. You taught me that being a mensch is not optional, it's everything. I endeavor to follow your ways of integrity, responsibility, and caring for others. If there are ways that I succeeded, it is because I learned from you. If there are ways that I'm still growing, it's because I carry your values seriously. And Abba, if there was ever a moment when I caused you pain, when I misunderstood you, when I spoke or acted without enough sensitivity, I ask you now for mechila. If I did not always recognize the burden you carried, if I did not always appreciate the love that was there, I ask for your mechila. Abba, your values live on, your name is carried forward. May the Torah you honored, the emes you lived by, the tzedakah you gave quietly, the dignity you guarded, and the Mesiras Nefesh with which you carried responsibility stand as a zchus for you. May your neshama have a great aliyah, and may you look down and have great nachas from your beautiful family. We will always talk about you the same way you are proud of your roots. We are so proud to carry your name and your legacy. Please be Let's Yosher for your entire family.
His grandson Yisrael.
Saba and I spoke a different language that most people didn't understand. Growing up, every summer I used to work for him, and he would have me do seemingly odd, random things that most people wouldn't understand. I mean, I didn't understand until later on. He used to have me sort baseball cards and catalog them. He used to have me go through newspaper clippings and find anything that had to do with anything with the Holocaust and have me cut out different articles and catalog them and write down the names from them. He used to have me go through stamps, Jewish stamps. He used to just have me do these seemingly random things, and I didn't understand what they were. Honestly, the job paid better than most until Safta found out how much I was getting paid. Later on, he used to show me family trees, and he used to show me where we came from and to understand my roots and to understand where I came from. And he tried to put back pieces of any lost family that he had that we didn't know about. He tried to put back pieces of lost family from other families. And then as I got older, he started having me find Sfarim that were owned by our family.
and to track them down, Svarim that were out of print, Svarim that were owned and used by my family. It was just like a year ago I found a sefer that he's been trying to find for many years. And I told him about it, and the look on his face, he was ecstatic. He wanted me to have it rebound. And just the joy in his face to see that I found something that he's been trying to find was beautiful. He saw Klal Yisrael as a puzzle that was broken many years ago, and he wanted to be the one to help put it back together even a little bit. He would help other families who would go through these forums online, and he would help these random people. I had someone call me up from Borough Park recently that said, I heard you're related to Louis Schonfeld. I'm trying to find this family member. Do you know how I can find it? And I was trying to help him go through certain things. There's countless people that he helped online, just even trying to find their roots, trying to find their family. He treasured Messiah like nothing else. There's Kvarim that he wanted me to find in Europe. So I went recently to try to find it. By the time I got back, I couldn't tell him that I found what he was looking for many years. But he was always so excited to share these things with me. And all these things about my family, all these seemingly random things with these baseball cards and stamps, they were all part of the same puzzle. He used every tiny little bit of memorabilia or anything that he could find to try to put back the puzzle of Klal Yisrael that was lost. My grandfather treasured Messiah like nothing else. He would tell me, he was so proud to always tell me how his father's father's father married the daughter of the B'nai Yissaschar. He would always tell me, he gave me before he got sick, he gave me the Munkach Rebbe's sons, told him to reach out and told him that I should tell them who I am, should go meet with him. He was always trying to stress to me the Messiah, about how important it was to him. Before I would go to yeshiva, every time before I would leave to yeshiva, I would stop by Sab and Savta's house to say goodbye. He would always send me off with money, and until Savta found out how much I could have paid my tuition with it. Whenever I would come back, he would always ask me what I was learning. And if I would tell him what I was learning, and it was the same thing he was learning in Tells, he would always ask me about the big sugyas that were in the Masechta at the time. He always just had such a joy in his face whenever I would share certain things with him. When I would share certain things, like I learned something about our family, something new, how ecstatic he was. I can't describe the joy. He was so happy that some of his grandchildren could help carry on the Messiah and cared about it as much as he did. Growing up in Shul, every single week, I'd have half the Shul come over to me, ask me how's my grandfather doing. At Rabbi Chalap, when I was by the Koil, I would have people come over to me and ask me how my grandfather's doing, or what he's up to. So I was a very unique person. He tried to find people that were even slightly related to him. I was in Baltimore like a year and a half ago, and there was a Mashulach that came over to me and asked me for a ride. So I said, of course, and I gave him a ride to where he was going. He asked me where I'm from, Cleveland. He said he used to come to Cleveland a while back. I said, oh, why'd you come to Cleveland? He said there was this nice man that used to help me and used to go around fundraising and used to have parlor meetings in my house. He said he was fascinated that I learned in the Munkach Kollel, and ever since then, he would fundraise for the entire Kollel for me. I said, what's his name? He said, Louis Schonfeld. I said, that's my grandfather. And he asked me how my grandfather's doing. He said he hasn't spoken to him in a few years. These are the type of things that the Baruch spoke about. No one knew what was going on. Just he found someone that was related to him. In Baltimore, he found there was a car dealership that had the same last name as him. He had to buy a car from them. If there's any sort of connection to his family meant everything to him. He always had a soft spot for my sister Rena. There was one time Rena came in to the office, and Rena was telling him, like, Saba, I need more friends. Saba handed her a stack of cash and said, go make friends. We all tried the same thing. It didn't work the same. But yeah. I wanted to end off. There's a biography on Rav Moshe Shapiro, and it says in the introduction that a Talmud came over to Rav Moshe Shapiro, and he said, I'm in Eretz Yisrael, and everyone talks about the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, and what's going on here. He said, I've been here for so long, I don't feel it. He said, everyone talks about it, it's the most important thing. He said, I don't know what's going on. Moshe Shapiro told him that sometimes, he told him that when you stare into the sun, you don't know what you're looking at. You just see brightness. You can't conceptualize the shape, what's going on. All you know is just that it's bright. He said, sitting in Eretz Yisrael, it's the same thing. You don't even know. It's too big. It's too great. Saba was born to survivors. He was born in the DP camps in Germany to a world that no one in my generation, or even the generation on top of me, can really understand even a little bit. Looking at Saba, it felt to me like I was looking at the sun. I think I understood it. I saw brightness, but I couldn't conceptualize even a little bit of greatness. Even the little bit that I only conceptualize just a little bit of how much more there was. Him, along with Savta, created the greatest family I could have ever asked for. And just looking at him was like nothing else. I'll always remember all the stories that he used to tell me about different rebbes in Europe, and how every single one of them were related to, and this one and that one. I just want to end off. There's one thing that Saba would have wanted. He would have wanted shalom. If there would ever be a time in the world to make shalom, it would be a time like this. Life is too short to not have shalom. Shalom is not the responsibility of one person to do something. Shalom is an obligation on every single one of us to choose that we love our family more than we don't like what someone may or may not have done. We need to choose that we love people more than something that would have happened. Saba would have hated to see anything but shalom, and it's the obligation on all of us to maintain that shalom. I just want to end off thinking, seeing what Savta has done for Saba for all these years creates an impossibility for me to find a wife like that. Like, how in the world could I ever find someone that could care for me in the type of way that Savta could care for Saba for so many years? Seeing that was just, I used to always talk about, I remember mentioning, I think to my sister once, that I come from a dynasty of women that just care more about every single other person in the entire world than themselves. And to say that Savta Mesiras Nefesh for Saba is beyond an understatement to explain what I've seen. I mean, even what I saw, I don't even know the half of it. Even our kids don't know the half of it. And I'm just a grandkid, so I wanted to thank Savta for that. Michal Mikli.
We're here today to celebrate the life of my father, Louis Schonfeld, known to many as Louis, and to some as Chaim Elazar. His life was a tapestry of resilience, intelligence, faith, and deep love, a journey that began in hardship and blossomed into a legacy of strength, generosity, and devotion. My father's story began in a displaced persons camp in Germany, an only child and born to parents who survived the Holocaust. His parents carried unimaginable pain, and although they loved him deeply, that love was shaped by trauma they endured. When my father was just 9 years old, they made the painful decision to send him away to school so he could have stability and a chance to grow. He attended Telz Yeshiva in Chicago, where he learned early on how to take care of himself, developing the independence and resilience that would define him throughout his life. He grew up in Los Angeles, and later his path led him to Cleveland, after marrying Rita, my mother, his beloved wife and life partner. Together they built a home filled with faith, purpose, and love. They raised 6 children, Mati, Dina, myself, Ronit, Yael, and Baruch, and watched with joy as their family grew to include grandchildren and great-grandchildren. My father's career journey was as remarkable as his personal one. He began as an accountant in Los Angeles, but after meeting my mother, he joined the family business and became a nursing home administrator, eventually becoming an owner. Those who worked with him remember him fondly, a man revered for his generosity, fairness, and genuine care. He didn't seek to be the richest man in the world. His joy came from sharing success with his employees, supporting them and helping them thrive. My father was a brilliant man, endlessly curious, thoughtful, and full of knowledge. He loved to read, to learn, and to collect, whether rare stamps, Jewish baseball cards, or cherished family stories. His passion for genealogy connected him deeply to his roots, and he took special pride in tracing his lineage to Bnei Yissaschar, a source of both identity and inspiration. He had difficulty expressing emotion, not because he didn't feel deeply, but because he had never been shown how. His father, a survivor himself, was not openly affectionate, and my father did the best he could with the example he had. His love was steadfast and practical, found in his guidance, his protection, his generosity, his generosity, and his unwavering support. Beneath his sometimes reserved demeanor was a heart that cared profoundly. He adopted Mati and Dina when they were just 5 and 2, and from that day on, they were fully and completely his children. He never drew lines, only love. His pride in his children were immeasurable. Whenever his grandchildren came to visit, he'd remind them with a familiar sparkle, "Did you know your mother is my daughter?" It was his way of saying, "You come for me, and I couldn't be prouder." My father's mind was sharp, but his advice was simple and wise. When I was struggling to study late at night, he told me, "Go to bed early and wake up early. It's quieter then." And when I compared myself to classmates who earned perfect grades without any effort, he said, "They don't have a TV. What do they have to do?" That was my father, honest, practical, and somehow comforting, even in his bluntness. He and my mother were remarkably generous to their family and to their community. They gave quietly and humbly, never seeking recognition. Time and again, when Jewish schools or synagogues tried to honor them, they declined. Their giving came purely from the heart, tzedakah lishma, charity for its own sake. I often joked that perhaps his charitable ways saved him from dying. Over the years, he had multiple near-death experiences, being resuscitated more than once. Tzedakah tatzil mimaves, charity saves from death, felt particularly true for him. In his later years, my father faced depression and loss of his parents, especially his mother, to whom he was exceptionally close, and that deepened his struggle. She had cared for him in every way, and her passing left a space that never fully healed. Still, he searched for peace and meaning. His journeys to Uman for Rosh Hashanah became a source of comfort and faith. The teachings of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, especially the belief there is no despair in the world at all, resonated deeply with him. Through all of this, my mother stood as the unwavering pillar of our family. She is, in every sense, the ultimate caregiver, a woman whose strength is matched only by her boundless heart. At just 25, she cared for her first husband as he battled lymphoma, standing by him with courage and devotion until his final day. She cared for her own mother, my grandmother, with the same steadfast love, remaining by her side until she passed at almost 100 years old. And she dedicated herself completely to my father. She explored every possible treatment, traveled between hospitals in Cleveland and Akron, and never gave up hope for his recovery. Her motto was always one day at a time. My mother refused to face death until the moment it arrived. She held on to every shred of hope, not out of denial, but out of love. Her loyalty, her perseverance, her faith carried my father through some of the hardest years of his life, and they are testament to the extraordinary woman she is. At the end of his life, my father suffered greatly, physically and emotionally. It was painful to see someone so strong endure so much. And yet, even through the confusion and the pain, his faith never left him. In his hospital bed, even while delirious, he recited Shema over and over. When everything else faded, his connection to Hashem remained. His final words were not fear, but of faith. My father's life wasn't simple, but it was real. He faced challenges with courage and gave love in ways he knew how. He wasn't always easy to understand, but for those who looked deeper, for those who loved him, there was no mistaking his goodness, his care, and his desire to do right. And now, as his daughter, I want to say something from my heart. Abba, I know I wasn't always the most respectful or patient daughter. There were times I didn't fully understand you, and times I spoke or acted in ways that might have hurt you. And for that, I ask your forgiveness. But please know that I saw you. I saw your struggle, your strength, and your heart. I understood, perhaps than most, the emotional pain you carried and how hard you tried to overcome it. I didn't take your reactions personally because I knew they came from a place of hurt, not from a lack of love. I loved you then, and I love you now, and I'm so grateful to have been your daughter. My father's legacy is not just in his knowledge, his giving, or his accomplishments. It is in his resilience, his faith, and the family he built. He leaves behind a story of survival, growth, and love that spans generation. May his memory be a blessing, Yehi Zichro Baruch, and may his soul find the peace and comfort he so deeply sought, resting now in Hashem's eternal embrace.
Yael Goldstein.
Abba, several weeks ago, I came across a little memoir about a Holocaust survivor in one of the free libraries in my community. I immediately thought, I wonder if my father read this book. He would love it. I slipped the book into my car, thinking I would give it to him on my next Cleveland adventure. Reading was something I never liked. It never came easily to me as a child, but I grew up watching you read, analyze, highlight, and study so many incredible books. Most of these books were associated with the Holocaust. I never understood the need to connect with one of the saddest moments in Jewish history. But after many years of personal struggle, I get it. In all the darkness, there's light. Very small pockets of light, but moments when strangers show acts of kindness, when families experience small acts of hope, and when all hope seemed lost, they kept going. Abba, no one will ever say you're not a fighter. I always joked that you were a cat with 9 lives, because you never stopped fighting. I admire that fight. The perseverance. You taught me what it means to keep going, keep pushing. And that's something I recently learned, and I wish I could have been able to tell you. I vividly remember meeting you in Poland in 2008 in the dead of winter. You didn't bring a coat. Lucky for you, I've always been overly anxious and came prepared with multiple jackets. So I had a spare. You shrugged it off, saying, they didn't have coats in the camp. I rolled my eyes, but now looking back, I realize that you show me what it means to fight and overcome. There was a saying you would always say whenever I was down on myself. You would always quote Rav Nachman of Breslov and his famous words that you should never put yourself down. At the time, I shrugged it off, but I get it now. Speaking kindly to ourselves is a form of fighting the internal battle that we all face. Abba, I hate public speaking. It terrifies me. It's funny because I can always find something to talk to virtually anyone I meet, but putting my thoughts on paper is daunting. On the contrary, public speaking is something you excelled at. So with many tears running down my face, I'm fighting to face my fear of public speaking for you. I hope this shows you just a sliver of the fight that you have instilled in me. I wanted to leave you with a powerful blurb from the memoir I mentioned earlier, written by Eddie Jacko in 2019. In the book, The Happiest Man on Earth, Eddie shares that every day he would sit down at his table for coffee, surrounded by pictures of his beautiful children, Michael and Andre and their wives, Linda and Eve, and their grandchildren, and their great-grandchildren. And in them, he would see himself and his beloved wife, and also his father and his mother. He would see the love that they gave in their short time on earth, and that's wonderful beyond words. The children will go on and have their own struggles and their own triumphs, and will grow and build and give back to the society that they have given so much. This is why we live, and this is why we work and strive to pass on the best in our next generation. Kindness is the greatest wealth of all. Small acts of kindness last longer than a lifetime. This lesson that kindness and generosity and faith in our fellow man is more important than money. It is the first and greatest lesson my father has ever taught me. And in this way, you will always be with us and always live forever. I love you, Abba. I hope you can forgive me if I had done anything wrong, because I definitely have. And I'm sorry. I will miss your annoying shimmies. Please hug Bobby Schonfeld for me.
Gonna make a molly. El molly rachamim shecheim bamramim hamtzei menuchanechoin al kanfei hashchina b'ma'alois kedoshim utorim kizayar kiyam azirim es nishmas Chaim Aloza ben Yitzchak Isaac shehalach li'olamoi בעבור שמשפחת יתנו צדוקה בעד הזכרת נשמסוי בגן עדן תהי מנוחסוי לכם בעל הרחמים יסתירהו בסייסר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור בצרר חיים אס נשמסוי אדוני הוא נחלוסוי וינוח בשלום על משכבוי ונאמר אמן. The Oren will be going to Eretz Yisrael today, and the family will be back in Cleveland, sitting Shiva in Cleveland on Friday. If anybody needs information regarding the Levaya in Eretz Yisrael, they can be in touch with the family or the shul office at Zichron Chaim.